Every country on Earth is in debt. The United States now owes over $38 trillion, the highest figure in its history. The European Union carries around 14 trillion. Japan, almost 9 trillion. Even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia or export powerhouses like Germany and China owe enormous sums. But here's the paradox. If everybody owes money, who exactly is owed? Debt isn't just a burden. It's the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every boom and bust sits on top of this invisible scaffolding of IOU. And if you follow the chain of creditors long enough, you discover something unsettling. The world doesn't owe money to anyone in particular. It owes it to itself. To understand how we reached this point, a planet drowning in over $315 trillion of total debt, we need to go back to the beginning. Centuries ago, the idea of national debt was born not on Wall Street, but in war. In 1694, England was fighting France and running out of gold. The king turned to merchants for help. In exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments backed by future taxes, they financed the crown. Tomanaje, the Bank of England, was created. It was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it didn't yet have. In return, lenders received a promise from the government, one that could be traded, bought, or sold. That was the birth of the government bond, the seed of the modern financial system. National debt became not a mark of failure but a measure of credibility. The ability to borrow was the ability to rule. Fast forward 3 centuries, and debt has become the world's dominant export. Global borrowing increases by $1 trillion every 100 days. Every country owes. Every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both debtor and creditor. But who exactly holds the other end of the rope? Let's start with the United States, because its debt is global. Of that $38 trillion figure, about half is publicly held, meaning owed to investors. Roughly 2/3 of those investors are American banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining 1/3, about $9 trillion, sits in foreign hands. Japan is the top holder with around $1 trillion, followed by China with about $800 billion. So when people say the US is in debt to China, that's true, but only for roughly 2% of the total. Most of the debt America owes is the Treasury issues bonds. American institutions buy them, and Americans pay taxes that fund the interest, which then flows into their retirement accounts. It's a circular mirror. This circularity is global. Japan lends to the US lends to Europe through the IMF, and Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. It's a planetary game of hot potato where the potato is made of promises. But there's another layer. The markets themselves. Hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks are the true arbiters of credit. They decide which nations can borrow cheaply and which will pay a premium for survival. Democracies decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. But here's the real secret. Governments don't plan to pay off their debt. Not now. Not ever. They treat debt like a rolling subscription, issuing new bonds to pay off old ones. This is called refinancing. The interest is the real product. The global economy now depends on this. The United States will never clear its $38 trillion debt. It will refinance it forever. Japan has been doing this for decades. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid. They're waiting to renew the deal. Why? Because for them, government debt is the safest asset in existence. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't a liability. It's the foundation of global markets. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as security, and central banks treat it like money. The system depends on governments never paying off their debt. If they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument, triggering a global collapse. So they keep issuing more, not recklessly, but rhythmically. The debt becomes a kind of heartbeat for capitalism itself. So when we say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half true. The interest payments flow upward, from taxpayers to the institutions and investors who hold the debt. It's a transfer, not just between countries, but between classes. That's why global inequality and global indebtedness rise together. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who merely pay it. At the top of this pyramid, there isn't one face to blame. It's not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It's all of them and us. The modern financial system has turned debt itself into money. The line between debtor and creditor has blurred beyond recognition. Debt once meant bondage. Today, it means balance. But if that balance ever tips, if confidence breaks, the illusion ends. And we'll remember what debt really is. A promise that can't be kept forever. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.